The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the city skyline as Eleanor Sinclair stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of her penthouse office. The sprawling metropolis stretched endlessly before her, a testament to her power and influence. She had built an empire, Sinclair Real Estate Holdings, a conglomerate worth billions, responsible for shaping some of the most luxurious skyscrapers and residential estates in the country. From the outside, Eleanor had everything: wealth, respect, power. She was the epitome of success, a woman who commanded boardrooms with an air of unwavering authority. But beneath the polished surface of her life lay a wound that had never healed, a void that no amount of money could fill. Her daughter. 20 years had passed since that fateful day, but the memory remained as vivid as ever. She could still hear the rain hammering against the hospital window, could still feel the cold grip of her father's hand as he delivered the verdict that would change her life forever. "You're young, Eleanor. You have a future ahead of you. A child will only hold you back. This is for the best." She had been just 18 then, naive, scared, and completely at her family's mercy. The Sinclairs were old money, a dynasty that had built their wealth on power and control. Scandal was not tolerated, and an unwed pregnancy was an unforgivable stain on their legacy. Her father had given her no choice. The baby was taken from her before she could even hold her in her arms. All she had left was a single silver pendant, half of a matching set. She had begged, pleaded for the orphanage to ensure her daughter kept the other half. A desperate attempt to leave behind something, anything, that might one day bring them back together. For years, she had tried to search. She had hired private investigators, scoured adoption records, chased leads that led nowhere. Her family had buried the truth so deeply that it seemed impossible to uncover. Eventually, she had no choice but to move forward, though she never truly stopped looking. And now, 20 years later, she was still haunted by the what-ifs. A knock at the door pulled Eleanor from her thoughts. "Ma'am, the jet is ready," her assistant Miranda informed her. Eleanor nodded. "How long is the flight?" "About an hour and a half. The meeting is scheduled for tomorrow morning." Eleanor exhaled slowly. Another business deal. Another expansion of her empire. It should have been exciting, but lately, everything felt mechanical. Work had been her escape, but even that no longer distracted her from the ache in her chest. She grabbed her coat and bag, but before leaving, she hesitated. Her fingers drifted toward the top drawer of her desk, the one she rarely opened. Slowly, she pulled it open and retrieved a small velvet box. Inside lay the pendant, her half of the silver token that had once been whole. She ran her fingers over its surface before snapping the box shut. One last glance at the city below, then she turned on her heels and left. The private jet touched down at a small airstrip just outside a quaint town. The place was unremarkable: quiet streets, modest buildings, and the kind of small-town charm that seemed untouched by time. Eleanor had no particular interest in the area. It was simply where her next investment deal had taken her. The meeting wasn't until the morning, but she preferred arriving the night before. After settling into her hotel, she decided to take a walk, something she rarely did. The town streets were peaceful, and for once, she felt like just another person, not a billionaire whose name was splashed across financial magazines. As she strolled past a row of small shops and diners, she caught sight of a modest little restaurant tucked between a bakery and a bookstore. A small sign read, "Daisy's Diner." Eleanor wasn't particularly hungry, but something about the place drew her in. Maybe it was the warm glow of the lights, the soft hum of conversation drifting through the windows. Maybe, just for one evening, she wanted to sit in a place that didn't reek of wealth and power. She stepped inside. The scent of freshly brewed coffee and home-cooked meals filled the air. The diner was simple but welcoming, the kind of place where regulars knew each other's names. Eleanor took a seat near the window and glanced at the menu. But before she could decide, a voice broke through the background chatter. "Hi, ma'am. Welcome to Daisy's. What can I get you?" Eleanor looked up, and for a moment, her breath caught in her throat. The waitress standing before her was young, no more than 20. She had warm brown eyes, a gentle smile, and an air of quiet resilience. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her uniform, though neat, showed signs of wear. But it wasn't her face that left Eleanor speechless. It was the glint of silver hanging just above the girl's collarbone. Pendant, a familiar pendant, an exact match to the one Eleanor had just held in her hands hours earlier. Her heart pounded in her chest. It was impossible. Couldn't be. And yet, as she stared at the young woman before her, she knew, deep in her soul, she had just found her daughter. Eleanor Sinclair had spent decades building a world where she controlled every outcome. But in that moment, as she sat at the modest diner table staring at the young waitress, she felt completely powerless. The silver pendant around the girl's neck was unmistakable, a perfect match to the one Eleanor had cherished for 20 years. Her breath caught in her throat, her fingers tightening around the edge of the table as her mind raced. Was this real? Could it be possible? The waitress, oblivious to Eleanor's internal turmoil, smiled warmly. "Would you like something to drink while you decide?" Eleanor blinked, forcing herself to regain composure. She had handled billion-dollar negotiations with ruthless investors, yet forming a simple sentence now felt impossible. "Just water, please," she finally managed. The girl nodded and scribbled the order on her notepad. "I'll be right back." As she walked away, Eleanor exhaled shakily. This wasn't a dream. The girl existed. And if the pendant was what she thought it was, then she had just found her daughter. She watched as the young woman moved gracefully between tables, balancing plates and refilling drinks with practiced ease. There was something familiar about her, not just in her features, but in the way she carried herself. A quiet strength, a natural grace. Eleanor's mind raced. How had she ended up here, waiting tables in a small-town diner? Who had raised her? Did she even know she was adopted? When the girl returned with a glass of water, Eleanor forced a smile. She had to be careful, had to approach this delicately. If she was wrong. No, she couldn't be wrong. "What's your name?" Eleanor asked, her voice softer than usual. "Lily," the girl answered with a polite smile. "Lily." Eleanor repeated the name in her mind. Not the name she had chosen, but beautiful nonetheless. "That's a lovely name," she said. "Do you work here often?" Lily nodded. "Most evenings. It helps with school." "School? I take classes at the community college during the day. I'm studying business." Eleanor felt a strange pang in her chest. Her daughter was studying business just like she had once done. It was a small connection, but it meant the world. "That's impressive," Eleanor said. "Do you like it?" Lily hesitated, then shrugged. I guess. It's practical. But if I had a choice, I'd be studying art." Eleanor tilted her head. "Art?" A spark lit up in Lily's eyes. "Yeah, I love painting. Always have. But, real life gets in the way." She let out a small laugh. "Dreams don't always pay the bills." Eleanor's heart clenched. It was such a simple statement, yet it carried so much weight. Had her daughter spent her whole life putting aside her dreams just to survive? Lily glanced at another table. "I should probably get back to work. Do you know what you'd like to eat?" Eleanor hadn't even looked at the menu. "Surprise me," she said, smiling. Lily chuckled. "All right, one house special coming up." As she walked away, Eleanor reached into her purse and gripped the small velvet box. The pendant inside felt heavier than ever. This was her daughter. She was sure of it. But how did she tell her? How did she even begin to explain the truth? She couldn't just blurt it out. "Oh, by the way, I'm your long-lost mother, and I've been searching for you for 20 years. No, she had to be careful. She had to find out what Lily knew. As Eleanor waited for her food, she observed Lily from afar. The girl was kind to the customers, quick on her feet, and worked tirelessly without complaint. It pained Eleanor to think of all the hardships she had faced alone. When Lily returned with the plate of food, Eleanor decided to take a more direct approach. "That's a beautiful necklace you're wearing," she said, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside her. Lily's fingers instinctively reached for the pendant. "Oh, this? I've had it forever. Where did you get it?" Lily shrugged. I don't really know. I guess I've always had it. Eleanor's pulse quickened. Did someone give it to you? Lily hesitated, her expression growing more serious. The woman who raised me. She said it was the only thing I had when they found me at the orphanage. Eleanor's breath caught. Orphanage. Her daughter had never been adopted. She had spent her childhood in the system. The realization hit her like a freight train. She had spent years searching, thinking her father had arranged a closed adoption, that her daughter had been given a new family, a new life. But no, she had been abandoned completely. Eleanor clenched her fists under the table. Her father had lied. He had told her the baby would go to a loving family, but instead, he had erased her from their lives as if she never existed. She felt sick. Are you okay? Lily asked, noticing the sudden shift in Eleanor's expression. Eleanor forced a smile. Yes, I'm fine. That's a very special piece of jewelry. Lily glanced down at the pendant and smiled softly. Yeah, I guess it is. It's the only thing I have from before. Eleanor swallowed the lump in her throat. She wanted to tell her. She wanted to reach across the table, take her hand, and say, I'm your mother. I never wanted to leave you. I've searched for you every day. But she couldn't. Not yet. Not like this. Instead, she made a silent vow. She would make things right. She would tell her the truth. And she would never let her go again. Eleanor sat in the back seat of her sleek black sedan, gripping the manila envelope in her hands. Her heart pounded violently against her ribcage as she stared at the unassuming package. Inside lay the answer to the question that had consumed her every thought for weeks. The DNA test results. She had thought she already knew the truth. From the moment she saw that pendant, something deep inside her had screamed that Lily was her daughter. But now, science had confirmed what her heart had already accepted. Lily was hers. Tears welled in Eleanor's eyes as she exhaled shakily. For 20 years, she had searched, never knowing if the baby she had been forced to give up was safe, happy, or even still alive. And now, after all this time, fate had brought them back together in the most unexpected way. But how did she tell her? Would Lily accept her? Or would she resent her for the life she had lost? That evening, Eleanor found herself once again seated at Lily's section in the diner. The familiarity of the place had grown on her. Though modest, it had become the setting for something life-changing. When Lily approached, her face lit up with that same warm smile that Eleanor had come to cherish. Back again? She teased. You know, at this point, I should just reserve your usual table. Eleanor chuckled, though her mind was far from lighthearted. I like it here, she admitted truthfully. And I like talking to you. Lily raised an eyebrow playfully. That's because I'm an excellent waitress. Eleanor hesitated for a moment before finally asking, Lily, have you ever thought about looking for your biological parents? Lily paused, caught off guard by the question. A flicker of sadness crossed her face before she carefully masked it. I used to, she admitted, fiddling with the corner of her notepad. When I was younger, I had all these fantasies about them, that they were looking for me, that one day they'd show up and take me home. She let out a small, bittersweet laugh. But as I got older, I realized that if they had really wanted me, they would have found me. Eleanor's heart twisted painfully. She had wanted her, more than anything. Lily shook her head, forcing a smile. Besides, I'm fine. I got my own life now. No use dwelling on the past. Eleanor hesitated, then reached into her purse, her fingers brushing against the envelope. She could tell her now. She could lay the truth bare and finally hold her daughter again. But looking at Lily, the guarded expression, the pain she tried so hard to hide, Eleanor knew she had to tread carefully. Instead, she placed the envelope back in her bag. Not yet. Not until Lily was ready. Over the next few weeks, Eleanor continued to visit the diner, strengthening the bond between them. She learned about Lily's struggles, her dreams, and the small joys she found in life despite the hardships. She listened as Lily talked about her part-time art classes, the way her fingers came alive with color when she painted. She watched the way her face glowed when she spoke of her younger years, despite the difficulties. And with every story, every smile, Eleanor fell even more in love with the daughter she had lost. One evening, as the diner was closing, Lily surprised Eleanor by setting down 2 cups of coffee and sliding into the seat across from her. "You're always asking about me?" Lily said, crossing her arms with a smirk. "But what about you? What's your story?" Eleanor hesitated. No one had asked her that in a long time. "Well," she started, carefully choosing her words, "I run a company." Lily's eyes widened. "Wait, you run a company?" Eleanor laughed. "Yes, Sinclair Enterprises." Lily nearly choked on her coffee. "Wait, Sinclair as in the billion-dollar business? That's Sinclair." Eleanor nodded. Lily stared at her in disbelief. "And yet, here you are eating at a roadside diner like a regular person?" Eleanor smiled. "Money doesn't mean much if you don't have something real in your life. Something real, like her daughter." Lily studied her carefully. "So why do I get the feeling you're not just here for the food?" Eleanor hesitated, her heart pounding. "It was time. I came here looking for something," she admitted. "Or rather, someone." Lily's brows furrowed. "Someone?" Eleanor reached into her purse and pulled out the velvet box that held the identical pendant. She placed it gently on the table between them. Lily's eyes flickered to the box, then back to Eleanor. Slowly, hesitantly, she reached out and opened it. The moment she saw the pendant inside, her breath hitched. "This?" she whispered, fingers trembling as she picked it up. "This is just like mine." Eleanor's voice was thick with emotion as she said, "That's because it was part of a matching set." Lily looked at her, confusion and shock clouding her expression. "What are you saying?" Eleanor's throat tightened. This was the moment. With all the tenderness in the world, she reached across the table, taking Lily's free hand in hers. "I'm saying that you are my daughter." Silence. Lily's breath came in short, uneven gasps as her mind tried to process what she had just heard. "No, that's not possible," she said, shaking her head. That's crazy." Eleanor's grip on her hand tightened. "I know this is a lot, but it's the truth. I lost you when you were a baby, and I've been looking for you ever since." Lily's eyes darted back to the pendant, then to Eleanor's face. Pain, confusion, hope. Her lips parted, as if to say something, but no words came out. Tears brimmed in Eleanor's eyes as she whispered, "I never stopped looking for you, Lily, and I will never leave you again." Lily's breath shuddered. Her entire world had just changed, and she didn't know whether to run or to finally let herself be found. Lily's breath hitched as she stared at the pendant in her trembling hands. The tiny golden piece, so familiar yet suddenly so foreign, now carried a weight she had never imagined. Across the table, Eleanor sat motionless, watching her with eyes full of unspoken longing. The air between them was thick with tension, a silent battle between disbelief and hope. "No, this isn't real," Lily whispered, shaking her head. "It can't be." Eleanor swallowed the lump in her throat, her fingers tightening around the matching pendant she had held onto for 2 decades. "I know this is a lot to take in," she said gently, "but it's the truth, Lily. You are my daughter." Lily let out a shaky laugh, one that barely masked the storm of emotions surging within her. "You expect me to believe that?" Her voice cracked. "That the woman who just happens to show up at my diner, talking to me like she's known me forever, is actually my long-lost mother?" Eleanor's heart clenched. "I know it sounds impossible, but I swear to you, I've been looking for you since the day you were taken from me." Lily shot up from her seat, sending her chair scraping against the floor. No, this is some kind of mistake," she said, pacing back and forth. "My mother, my real mother, didn't want me. She gave me up. She left me." Eleanor flinched as if she had been struck. "That's not true," she said, voice breaking. "I never wanted to give you up. You were taken from me." Lily froze, turning to face her. "Taken?" Eleanor took a deep breath, her hands trembling as she reached for her purse. She pulled out a folded newspaper clipping, one she had carried with her for years. Carefully, she placed it on the table and smoothed it out. Lily hesitated before stepping forward, her eyes scanning the faded ink. Wealthy heiress Eleanor Sinclair devastated by infant's disappearance. Daughter kidnapped from hospital. Lily's heart pounded against her ribs. Her fingers traced the edges of the article, the words blurring as tears welled in her eyes. This, her voice was barely a whisper. This can't be real. Eleanor reached for her hand, her touch warm, desperate. I never stopped searching for you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I hired private investigators. I followed every lead, every whisper of hope. And for 20 years, I found nothing. She inhaled sharply. Until I found you. Lily's world was spinning. Everything she had ever known, everything she had built her identity upon, was crumbling like sand slipping through her fingers. She had spent her whole life believing she was unwanted, that she had been discarded. But now this woman was telling her she had been stolen. Lily stumbled back, gripping the edge of the table to steady herself. Why didn't you find me sooner? She choked out. Eleanor's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. Because I didn't know where to look. The people who took you, they made sure I never found you. Her voice wavered. I thought I had lost you forever. Lily pressed a hand to her forehead, struggling to breathe. Her entire life had been a lie. The past 2 decades had been built on a foundation of pain, of believing she was never wanted. But now, here was a woman, her mother, who had never stopped loving her. And it terrified her. For hours they talked. Eleanor answered every question, revealing painful truths that had remained buried for years. She told Lily about the betrayal that had led to her abduction, about the sleepless nights and endless searching. Lily listened, silent and overwhelmed, absorbing every piece of the story like fragments of a life she had never known. When the night stretched into the early morning, Eleanor finally reached across the table. I don't expect you to accept this right away, she said softly. I know this is too much, too fast. Lily swallowed hard, her eyes still wet with lingering tears. But please, Eleanor continued, her voice barely above a whisper, just give me a chance. Let me show you that I never stopped loving you. Lily stared at her, this woman who had been a stranger just days ago, but who now felt like a missing piece of herself. For the first time in her life, she wasn't alone. With a deep, shaky breath, she reached out, and for the first time in 20 years, Eleanor held her daughter in her arms. The walls Lily had built around her heart finally cracked, and she let herself feel the love she had been denied for so long. A mother's love, unbreakable, unyielding, and finally found. In the months that followed, Lily slowly allowed Eleanor into her life. It wasn't easy. Decades of pain and abandonment didn't fade overnight, but little by little, they healed together. Eleanor invited Lily to stay with her, offering her the chance to finally experience the life she had been meant to have. Lily didn't accept right away. She was independent, stubborn, and hesitant to accept help. But Eleanor didn't push. She simply waited, just as she had waited all those years to find her. And when Lily was ready, she stepped into the life she had always deserved. Not because of the wealth or the luxury or the name, but because she had finally found where she belonged. In her mother's arms. At last.